Good afternoon, everyone, and Birshut Chavrei HaKnesset, with the permission of the members of the Knesset and with the permission of all of our esteemed guests over here. I want to talk to you about what is perhaps one of the most overlooked points in the grand picture of building bridges, establishing peace among Muslim nations and the state of Israel and the Jewish people, which is perhaps more well known in Israel, but not as well known, I have found, abroad in the United States, in Europe. And that is the story of Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews. By the show of hands, does anyone here know that Iran, where my parents are from, where my community is from, has the second largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel? Not a lot of people are aware of this fact, and yet, we are talking about not only the world's greatest and largest sponsor of global terror, of evil that unfortunately pillages the world, but we're also talking about, once upon a time, as Albert just alluded to, one of the greatest allies of the Jewish people, of the West, of the values that we hold so dear. So I want to talk to you about this story, because it's my story, and it's a personal story to me that I believe each and every one of you should be aware of in order to build these bridges that are so important, more so now than ever before. In addition to that, we'll also speak about some other pursuits and endeavors in my life that I believe build towards a more peaceful and prosperous future for all of us in an attempt to quell the fires of anti-Semitism that unfortunately have spread so far and wide due to the ignorance of the public nowadays. Here you have a photo of the great Chacham Yedidia Shofet. This was the chief rabbi of Iran, to the right, that is, prior to the fall of His Majesty the Shah in 1979. And to the left, you have the esteemed Chacham Yosef of blessed memory, who was perhaps the most towering rabbinic figure for Middle Eastern Jews of this past century. The two of them were dear friends. I actually had, I don't want to say the honor, but I happened to actually be present at the funeral procession of the late Rabbi Ovadia, and this was known as one of the largest funeral processions in Israeli history in the modern era. Over 500,000 people attended this funeral, and it was a legacy that continues to be filled. So here we have, is everyone familiar with this text? By the show of hands, what I'm displaying over here? Okay. This is a copy of the Aleppo Codex. In Hebrew, we call it Keter Aram Soba. For those of you who are Bible-believing Jews or Christians, this is the most authoritative text, the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible. Unfortunately, side point, but it's an important side point, there are portions of it which remain incomplete, and only recently did we discover that Jews from Aleppo had portions of this sacred document in places ranging from their kitchen cabinets to their wallets for good luck. So thank God much of it has been preserved, almost all of it has been preserved and has been well taken care of. Here I have from the book of Psalms. In Hebrew it reads, Shim'a tefilati Adonai. King David says, hear my prayers, O Lord. Veshavati ha'azina. Hear my pleas to you. El dimati al techerash. Do not be silent towards my tears. I plead to you, God. Why do I plead to you? In what capacity, in what state am I pleading to you? Ki ger anochi imach. I am but a mere sojourner in this world. Many of the English translations, they translate ger as a stranger. That's not correct from the point of view of biblical Hebrew. But rather, a ger is somebody who is residing somewhere in a temporary manner. In a certain sense, King David is saying, all of us are gerim. We are residents here in this world. We're not going to live forever. So God Almighty has placed us all here for a finite amount of time. Toshav kechol avotai. and I remain not just as a stranger, but as a resident. At the end of the day, I am still a human being endowed with a soul from God that places me as a resident here in this world. I mention this verse because all of us, in a certain sense, are dual citizens, if you will. On the one hand, we have one foot in the world of this physical earth that we all live in, and on the other hand, we are all connected to a higher divine source that we have to bridge. And so, with this, I want to discuss the next point of bridging worlds, which is the world of the Jewish life, the fact that Jews from Iran very successfully for thousands of years managed to bridge these two worlds. To the left, you actually have two very, very significant figures in Iranian Jewish history. Mullah Yosef Dilmani of blessed memory is my great-grandfather. He was the chief rabbi of the Mashhadi Jewish community in Iran. Is anybody here familiar with the Mashhadi Jewish community? Okay, that's my community, where I come from Great Neck. So part of the community after the fall of the Shah made their way to Israel. A small contingency made their way to London, Berlin, and Milan. And the overwhelming majority of them made their way to a tiny suburb in Nassau County, New York, where I am from, known as Great Neck, New York. Also home to the United States Merchant Marine Academy, by the way. Okay, so to the right of my great-grandfather of blessed memory, you have Mullah Yosef Zar, who's actually a distant relative of mine as well, and he led, as you can see, members of the Mashhadi Jewish community in Jerusalem who moved to Jerusalem prior to the fall of the Shah. The two of them were responsible for leading generations of Persian Jews in prayer, in the study of the Torah, in becoming sofrim, scribes, shochatim, slaughterers, those who were able to produce kosher meat and kosher food for the public. And they did so, by the way, very, very important, they did so free of charge. They did so in the capacity of being volunteers. Remember what King David said, I am a resident here, a volunteer of sorts, which they devoted their lives to so selflessly to raise that generation of Iranian Jews. So today, what does that mean practically? Today what that means is you have generations of Iranian Jews now who live in the United States, who live in the state of Israel, who live in Europe, who are bridges between these worlds. On the one hand, they're very intimately familiar with the Middle Eastern mindset, with the Iranian mind, with the culture, the norms, the ethics, the language. Farsi is my first language, even though I was born in the United States. So I have one foot in that door. On the other hand, they're also very intimately familiar with the West. If you were to take such an Iranian, such as myself, and put us in the heart of Tehran, we would have very, very ambivalent feelings, to put it mildly, right? Here you have my great-grandfather to the left with his class in Tehran, 1960, when they were learning shechita, how to produce kosher meat. You have my great-grandfather's madraseh, the school children over there who were, you'll notice they have these cute little hats. So this was the style back in the 1920s and 30s, the Pahlavi hat that was expected and customary uniform for all school children. It's a heritage that I'm deeply proud to be a part of, and it's one that I hope, God willing, we will emulate to bring about close bridges and ties with all of our neighbors in the Middle East. So, this leads me to the evolution of my journey here in the United States. I mentioned earlier how I have one foot in that world of Iranian Jewry. Well, I also have another foot very deeply immersed here in the United States, and that comes out in particular with my role as a chaplain in the United States Air Force. So I can't tell you how special this role is in my life. I am blessed to be able to serve this nation. It's the highlight of my year whenever I go in. I'm a reservist, so I don't serve 24/7, but I certainly wish it were more often. To the right, you have the annual Aleph Symposium. This is a symposium of various generals, Jewish service members, and DoD civilian employees who gather together once a year to discuss jointly, from all branches of the Department of Defense, by the way, how we can improve our lives in the United States Armed Services as Jewish service members. Not only to serve our fellow Jews in the US military, but as Jews, how we can best serve all service members, regardless of their background or ethnicity, and so on. To the left, you have a smaller crowd, but yet equally as important, at the White House Pavilion. We gathered together this past December to celebrate Hanukkah, and we were greeted by many guests, and we had the privilege of celebrating the lighting of the candles together there. A lot of people are unaware of just how many service members are of Jewish background or practicing Jews in the US military right now. And so we're able to serve them, as I said, in the capacity of being Department of Defense recognized clergy, rabbis. But anecdotally, I'll share with you very briefly another incident where I was able to serve a Kurd who was in the US, who was a soldier actually at my duty station at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. And this individual came to me once, borderline suicidal. And one of our jobs as chaplains is to, of course, de-escalate these situations. And this individual could not get anybody to truly understand the cultural background of the issue that they were facing, until this service member encountered an Iranian Jewish chaplain. And I was able to speak in Farsi with the service member, understand her where she is at, to meet her at her level, and to ultimately de-escalate this situation. And it just shows you that we're able to serve across various backgrounds, terrains, because of that dual reality that we live in, as members of the Iranian Jewish community on one hand, but also as proud US citizens. And then, last but not least, I also serve as the rabbi of Congregation Mikveh Israel in Philadelphia. And thank you. And this is also, you want to talk about things that are underrated. This is a hidden gem in Philadelphia. By the show of hands, who here has been to Philadelphia before? Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so the overwhelming majority of you. And how many of you have encountered this synagogue there? More than I was expecting. Okay, all right, all right. So the synagogue has been around, believe it or not, since 1740. And it goes without saying, maybe it doesn't go without saying, but we have certainly had to shift locations given the migration and demographics of the Jewish community in Philadelphia shifting over 285 years. But we've always remained in the heart of Center City, Philadelphia. By the way, the Netanyahus were former members of our synagogue. Yoni Netanyahu famously has a monument that, if you Google this, I encourage all of you to Google this, was unfortunately vandalized last October during the sacred holiday of Sukkot. And after this desecration of his monument, we had, perhaps related, perhaps unrelated, it's not clear, a group of criminals who tried to break into our synagogue. They set ablaze the south side of our building, which garnered the attention of US senators. Governor Shapiro reached out to us very graciously and concerned, and thank God there hasn't been any incident to face us thereafter. But what really shocked me the most was the media coverage. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked, I don't know. The media refused to acknowledge Yoni Netanyahu's monument as a monument dedicated to the brother of the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, instead choosing to call it a, quote, religious monument. Okay, go figure. So we stand proud as Zionists at Mikveh Israel. That is not going to be under question anytime soon, believe me. And thank you, thank you. Here you have to the right, one of my favorite activities at Mikveh Israel is not only to be able to lead the congregation in religious services and to continue that tradition of Spanish and Portuguese Jewish heritage that's been here in the United States for over 300 years, but also to be able to lead various groups in the synagogue who visit our synagogue in tours and to describe the history of the synagogue, the heritage that we have. I had a very rare privilege of giving a tour to a group of deaf students from a deaf school for the deaf in Israel. And you want to talk about a challenge. I had to give this tour in Hebrew, but somehow using an intermediary to translate that into sign language as well, which was an unbelievable experience, a remarkable experience. Behind the group of students that you see there, you'll see some Torah scrolls. Those scrolls go as far back to the period of the revolution itself, where the man in the middle, Mr. Chaim Solomon, is everybody here familiar with Chaim Solomon? Oh my God, please Google this man. He is the financier, the main philanthropist behind the American Revolution. He was approached by the man to the left of him, Mr. Robert Morris, Washington's treasurer, who said, Mr. Solomon, word on the street is you know how to fund revolutions. I know you are a very wealthy man, and I know you hate the British. And he said, where do I sign? So he essentially is the reason why all of us are able to stand here as proud Americans. No, it's true. It's true. And it's the reason why our synagogue and why the Jewish community here in Pennsylvania and the United States remains the strongest and most proud Jewish community in the world, side by side our Jewish brothers and sisters in the state of Israel. With that, I want to thank all of you for coming. I don't know if we have an opportunity for questions or comments, but I do want to end off with a very famous saying from the book known as Ethics of Our Fathers. In Hebrew, we say Pirkei Avot. This is a very, very important work from the 4th century, the period of the Mishnah, not too long after the life of Jesus, where you have many powerful and wise teachings from the sages of the Jewish people. This particular work is about ethics. And you have in Hebrew the famous teaching, Lo habur yireh chet. A brute will not fear error, right? V'lo ama aretz chasid. And an ignorant person cannot be a saint. Ve'en habashan lomed. And a bashful person will not learn. So don't be shy to ask questions, whether it's offline or privately. I'm around. You will see me. Please don't have any hesitation to approach me. And I thank you all for attending. Thank you.